Hi, guys. Can you hear my voice got a little bit better? Not a lot, but a little bit better. Guys, thank you for coming this week. I hope the topics that you heard before today is able to help you or somebody else in your life. Again, this is your host, K Did, and please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We post. I want to say we post daily on Twitter to get information out there. We doing job postings, and not particularly. We're not hiring at the moment, but we are giving the opportunity to people, different companies who are hiring within, which we think is like a good pay rate for New York City. Sometimes, a little bit below. We can't really do that with the rates, but we do try to get information out there to you guys. We do try to give out resources. We should have a resource packet in the description down below. So anything that I have talked about in the past couple of minutes or so, you can find everything down below. So today we have a guest. Theresa is her name, and she's gonna tell you a little bit about herself and what she does for the homeless community.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for having me. My name is Theresa Young, and I am the director at a shelter on the Lower East Side, Helen's House, which is operated by Henry Street Settlements. The shelter houses single women with children under the age of 8, and in apartment style housing. We are a tier 2, and we try and assist people with their relocation back into the community. In addition to being the director at the shelter, I am also the director of our aftercare services program at Henry Street. We provide grants to a small number of clients from our family shelters and domestic violence programs to assist with payments of rent. So it's a rental subsidy that is open to residents of our shelter, rather they are no matter what their status may be. So it is open to both citizens and foreign-born individuals. It is also open to people who may not have had meet some of DHS's eligibility requirements. You just have to have future potential to pay rent and find an apartment that you will be able to carry on after our subsidy ends. We provide aftercare services, which are case management services around that program as well. And I do a whole lot of other things outside of the job that we may get into later on, but I am glad to be here and talking with you today.
Yeah. So can you explain a little bit? I feel like I'm not the only person, but you said I think you said tier 2. Can you explain the different tiers and how they qualify into each category? Because I think a person who's not familiar with it, even myself, I've heard it, but I feel like I don't know. Because I feel like people don't break it down exactly what it is when they say
Sure.
certain things. Yes.
Well, I've been around for a long time, so I actually, you know, what it means. Once upon a time, before uh, probably 20 years ago, when people entered the shelter system, they entered into a tier 1 shelter, which was an assessment center. You had to be found eligible in order to be in order to enter into a tier 2. So families did not immediately come into a family shelter. During the eligibility period, they stayed at an assessment center, and once they were found eligible, then they entered the tier 2 or transitional housing. So during the Giuliani administration, they changed that system and had everyone coming directly to a tier 2 from PATH instead of going through this intermediate step before you were able to get into a family system. So the name didn't change. It still is a tier 2, but they kind of did away with tier 1s.
Got it. But what I understand, even though we don't discuss as much here about single shelters for like men or women. I believe
Mhm.
they some of them still do that, if I'm not
Yeah,
wrong. Yes, they
yeah, they
still do that.
do. Yeah, in the single system, everyone goes to an assessment center before being assigned to a shelter. So people can enter either through the single men system or single women system. They have those giant shelters, Bellevue, uh, the the Armory. They have set in both Brooklyn and the Bronx. And after families, rather, I'm sorry, singles go through assessment, then they're assigned to a shelter and spend their time there until they have found permanent housing. And people are usually assigned to a shelter for a year. So if you leave the shelter system and something happens and you have to re-enter, say a single person goes to stay with a family member and it doesn't work out, instead of returning to an assessment center, they can go right back to the shelter where they previously lived for 365 days because they're still assigned to that facility for that amount of time. And
Oh
if they
wow.
don't have a bed or space, then they can still re-enter and they will give them an emergency bed until a bed becomes available at their assigned shelter.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting. You learn something new every day.
Yep. The shelter system is so intricate and complicated. And if you're around long enough, you find out all these tidbits that are, just so New York.
It's so true. That's what that sounds like anyway. Um, I you said a program before that you have that gives, I want to call it a voucher in a way that will pay the rent. How
Mhm.
long, maybe I missed it. How long is that done? And it's pretty cool that you give, it seems like what I understood, it will be citizens and non-citizens or
Yes.
undocumented, as people might understand it, that qualify for that, which is pretty neat because a lot of programs don't actually qualify them in a lot of things. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why it's so valuable because we are able to assist people despite what their status may be. And we provide a rental subsidy um, for between 12 to 24 months, depending upon the person's circumstance. Usually it's uh, people are paid 30% of their income, and if we extend the program after the first year, then I usually have people pay a slightly higher fee so that they can get used to paying rents, and see what that's going to look like for their families instead of abruptly one day you have a voucher and then in the next day that you don't. Um, so it's a maximum of 2 years. So during that time, in addition to any social services needs that you may have, we also connect people to our workforce development center so that people are able to make sure that they're employed and saving and learning about credit, as well as doing some skills development so that if you're not earning enough to pay your rents, then you are able to find, ways to increase your employment after you have gone through some of the available, trainings or internship programs that we have available at the settlement.
Do you guys pay like people for internships, or because they're already in that program, they have to do it for free, like kind of work?
It depends on what program it is. Our Workforce Development Center does have programs where people are paid a salary in order to attend. We refer both. It depends on what the person is interested in. Some programs may be short-term things that everybody in the city can go to, security kinds of things or a CNA program, but we also are doing some exciting work with programs that provide assistance learning about construction or refrigeration or programs that really are going to pay people a living wage so that they're
Right.
able to pay for rent and not just um, earn New York City's minimum wage, which doesn't really pay anyone to allow anyone to be able to pay for rent in today's economy.
That's definitely true. The minimum wage needs to be. I know we came a long way because back in my day, I sound so old. I think minimum wage was like $5.50 or $5 and change when I was like when I first started working at like 14. Legally anyway. I used to work,
Well,
stuff.
well,
But
imagine when I started working, it was $3.35 an hour.
but
So
granted,
yeah, we've
living
come
was
a
much
long way.
cheaper. We have. I just wish they would go as fast as the time is going because before Corona, people couldn't make it under $15.
Hmm.
And now we in Corona where everything is even skyrocketing in price. And we can't even buy baby formula because we can't find it nowhere. And you have the audacity to still give us $15 an hour. It doesn't. The math is really not
Yeah,
adding up.
yeah,
So I feel like I understand that you don't want to give people $40 an hour because it's still people have to businesses have to run. But it's like, could you make it a little more acceptable for people to be able to live in this state? Well, actually, I couldn't say the state because New York State is very big. From when we think of New York City, we think of the five boroughs. So
yeah.
when we think of New York City, it's very expensive to live here. It's a city with never sleeps, but
So
it's also expensive just to be in the midst
to
of all this.
exist, yeah. One of the things that Henry Street, I feel like I'm a commercial for my agency at the moment, but um, one of the things that our executive director has done is that starting this fiscal year, the July that began July 1, the minimum wage at our agency is $22 an hour.
Oh
So
wow.
everyone makes at least $22 an hour. Um, you know, he strongly believes that budgets are a moral document and you're asking people to work with people who have low or moderate incomes and provide all these services to them, then and they may be eligible for your services as well because they're struggling. Um,
Exactly.
so we were able through fundraising and changing some things around with the way in which they fund some employee benefits, change our minimum wage to $22 an hour, and I think it has made a big difference in impact on people's day-to-day life and what they're able to afford. Because frankly, sometimes we would have staff who didn't have a Metro card to get to work.
Oh wow.
Um, and
That's abusive there.
I can remember those days not that long ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, coming out of my pocket and advancing some of our security staff or resident assistants a Metro card until they got paid when they first started working because they didn't have the money. Um, so I think that it makes a big difference. And it's about time that salaries are commensurate with the work that we do in taking care of people in New York City.
I like the topics are usually not about this in particular, but I think it's um a good thing for people to understand. A
Mhm,
lot of times people in a shelter, like the shelter workers, I should say, not even the people who are working, the caseworkers, the housing specialists, they don't work that much money.
mhm.
Some of them, if you listen to the prior podcast, this one young lady, she works in a shelter and she's in the shelter. She doesn't make, like, you have to think about this also. People, yes, they're to work, they're there to get a paycheck, they're there to help you, but a lot of them are stressed out just like you are in a way, because they have to be working for basically nothing, and they do a lot of work. It's a lot of work to have 20, 30, 40 people. You have to make sure the housing is together, make sure inspections is done for the department, for FEPS, I mean city FEPS, to even say yes or no or yay or nay about it. It's very stressful, and a lot of these companies don't want to hire the amount of staff it would need to cover. And that was before Corona. Now in Corona, because they have so much requirements to get in some of these positions, um, is already understaffed. So a lot of people don't
Yeah.
want to work because they saw that in Corona that, oh, you guys, they could go to a better company, will pay them more, and they'll do less work for a better money. They don't want to work for certain things, and people have the audacity to act like when you want to come for this job, mind you, they need the staff, but you need 5 years of experience. You need this and that, but yet you're not paying me properly, and you want all these years of history of work. It doesn't. Something needs to get a little bit better. I don't know what it is, but
I think, you know, uh, I think it's a struggle. Well, it's a struggle throughout the system because in addition to, you need the staff so that people can have someone to respond to their needs because you can't when you don't have staff, it just stresses out the people who are there even more, and more things just fall through the cracks. So the churn through the shelter system, because as you said, it is not only a lot of work, but it's demanding. And when you're dealing with people, it's always going to be stressful. Um,
true.
and because you have someone's life, and whether it's someone being having a home to go to and call their own because you didn't fill out a piece of paper or upload a document or do something correctly. That's a lot of stress.
It is.
Um, or it may just be that, someone is experiencing uh, trauma and you're wondering why they're upset or angry, and you have people who the staff that are going through their own experiences themselves. So it's yes, it is really difficult. And working in social services, unlike working in corporate America or retail or any other industries, is the stakes are so much higher. Because
True.
you're talking about people's basic needs, right? You go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People need food, shelter, and then you can get to all of the other things.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I think that looking at what agencies are asking, what the system is asking for, is also really important. Um, you may not there you may not need a degree plus 5 years of experience for for some of these positions. Maybe you need 2 years of experience, and you can use some of that experience to substitute for a degree, or
Right.
you may be able to come up with some tests to make sure that people can do the basics of being able to operate a computer or uh, use whatever technology or supports that are needed, or that people's writing skills are or presentation skills are at a certain level where they don't need a degree. Some of those things can be substituted because very often degrees or other certifications are used as a means of weeding people out and not calling people in. And we have to ask ourselves, is a degree needed, or is this what's needed, or is this what we want? Because it's also a matter of diversity and equity and inclusion. And if people have not been given the opportunity to pursue degrees because they didn't have the money or they didn't have the educational supports when they were in high school that put them in position to be able to go on and earn a college degree, um, which, uh, you're already putting them at a disadvantage to ever be able to climb out of that, um, out of the gate in order to be able to move to the next step in their lives and be economically self sufficient. Um, so, what's needed and what's wanted is, can be a really big difference. I've had staff who may not have a degree, but they surely know how to talk to somebody and navigate the system because they've been advocating for themselves all their lives. They've had to learn how to go out and hustle, how to figure out what systems are available to us in New York City and how to, um, motivate people and move people forward. I had a former staff person who said that if you can be on public assistance and figure out HRA, then there should be a degree just for that
Right.
itself.
Definitely. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Two things that you said just a while ago is something I've said either in the past 2 days or today. The first thing about the wants and the needs kind of thing, I talk about that in two different things that I did. I did this thing called Siren. It's like a conference. They do it once a year. I did that yesterday, and I talked about, and I also did a Capitol Hill Day. Said that in there also. But this morning, in one of my calls, I was talking about, dag, I forgot, dag, what you was talking about. I want to say money. Oh
Mhm.
yes, about how certain things, example, a college degree is good to have it because I feel like we can't certain areas in life you're gonna need a degree in. You need some knowledge about it. I know in certain countries they don't do like regular schooling for like doctors, but they do like on the job training as you go kind of
Mhm.
thing. Is like not that much of like classwork compared to like America or even I want to say England. I'm not sure about their system, but a person. I'm not gonna say we don't need people who are in the field who has degrees because I have a degree.
Oh,
No,
you most
we need
definitely
them,
do. You
but
most definitely do need
certain
it.
things you cannot be taught in the school. Going through
Mhm.
HRA is not something you don't get taught to go to a place. You stand up. Now they get more electronically, but back in the day, you get there, fill out this big packet that they give you, and then they make you sit there for hours. That's time management. That's like time management,
Mhm.
patience. Then the person you get might or might not have an attitude. I usually get pretty good people, thank God, but I've seen workers act nasty to people who are coming to see them, and the person has not act nasty to me yet. After 5 minutes of the nastiness, the person kind of get kind of crazy, but usually they don't come up to them that way, right? And I can understand the work up in there all day, probably seen other people with disgusting attitudes, but this person is new in front of you. You shouldn't give them the same energy that somebody else that had gave you that you didn't like. But you have to go through all these things, bring birth certificate, bring this, bring that. And you have to bring stuff from your landlord. You got to bring stuff for your job. You have to make sure this thing's up to date. If our ID is, not up to date is a problem. They make you go, I mean, so much hoops. You got to think about if I'm working today, can I tell my boss I'm going to the HRA office? I have to get a letter from the HRA saying I was there to make sure that my boss know I was really there, not skipping work. It takes a lot. And
Well,
be
I mean, think
yeah,
about it. When you are sending someone presents to you and they're telling you that I'm in risk of losing my housing, or I've already lost my housing and I'm residing in a shelter, and you have all this paperwork that is required. Now, to HRA's defense, a lot of this is both state and federal laws that they have to collect certain documentation to assess what you are and are not eligible for.
right,
So I don't want to suggest that it's not necessary in order for them to make document requests because it most definitely is. However, if you have someone who's just lost their housing, they may not have access to all of those documents. It may it may have been lost or destroyed, and a move from one shelter to the next, or in their move into shelter. It may be they may have left their belongings at a friend or family member's house and it's not easily accessible. It may be in a storage unit and they haven't had the money to pay the storage bill, so they can't get to it. And when you have to recreate your life,
Right.
and it's not only time consuming, but it's also costly. And you're there because you don't have any money, right?
Right.
So birth certificates cost how much money?
About 35, 40.
Like, and if you need one for yourself and a couple of kids,
Right.
that's your whole HRA check for that's your whole check.
Right. It definitely is. They don't give you that much.
So, sometimes you have to think about why you are not someone is not able to meet your request and not just assume that they're trying to be difficult.
It's definitely
Um,
true.
The other thing that, I just wanted to piggyback to say that I don't want to suggest to anyone that having an education is not important. Um,
Right.
it's not only important for the job market, but I also think that it's important for you as an individual because the biggest thing that education does is provide the ability for your world to expand. You learn not just about the world around you, and it gives you the opportunity to learn about yourself. you know I am a social worker by training, and I've went back to school last year, and I'm working on and I'm in an executive MPA, Masters in Public Administration program, because I'm really interested in policy and wanted to return to school so that I can broaden my knowledge. So it most definitely is important, but it also is not for everyone. College, I should say, is not for everyone.
Yeah. I think everybody should have like a skill or a trait or something that they need to be
Exactly.
able to push themselves
You
up.
know.
Granted,
y-
college not for everyone. I did go to college. I can say,
mhm.
am I using that degree? Depending on who you ask. Um, but I feel like it was a learning experience. I met some good people. Did I say I learned a lot? I went for theater arts, so you can take that as you wish. But I feel like if you're going in for a certain degree and you know that's going to help you in life, or just to even learn about certain things, you'd be surprised how much classes you could do. You'd be surprised. I took a puppet
Mhm.
class in school, and granted,
Oh, wow.
yes. So you would think like, but who would think I would be in a puppet, like learn about puppets, making puppets, nobody, or even making masks and stuff like that. Nobody would ever think about that. I would never think about, let me go to a puppet class. But I did have that experience. I'm in debt for it, but it was a cool experience nevertheless. I went out the country with my school. I was in a step team. I was in the gospel choir. I did a lot of experiences. I'm not gonna say,
Yeah.
it's the worst
So
thing.
it gave you the opportunity to broaden your horizons and see
Yes,
what other things there were in the world. And even if you are not working in the industry and which you got your degree in, I always say to people that you still learn transferable skills from everything that you do. It
right.
gave you working in theater gave you the confidence and ability to sharpen your presentation skills and to put on a podcast today.
That's true. Definitely true. You'd be surprised how much of these degrees, if you really look at it, really intersects with certain things. You go into for a certain major, a lot of other classes prepare you for different things in the world, to be honest. You'd be very, very surprised. But we're not talking about education now, guys. Sorry for our topic. But it's nice to get a little sidebar here and there to get to know your hosts and the guests that's coming on the show. But what program you could say that Henry Street has that, well, you said it's a part of Henry Street. It's not exactly Henry Street itself, right?
No, we are Henry Street. We are a settlement house. So in addition to operating shelters, we have programs that focus on education, both daycare, college, uh, after school programs, youth development programs. We have programs for seniors, naturally occurring retirement community, a center for older adults, a home planning, Meals on Wheels. We
Oh,
have
wow.
workforce programs. And one of the really cool things is that we have arts programs,
Mm.
and both the community and staff can take arts classes, both acting, theater, dance classes.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little bit of everything because not only, you know, do you need to treat the whole person. People need after your basic needs are met, then it's like, who do you want to be? What do you want to do?
Yeah,
And the arts are very much central into each of us figuring that out.
that's
Um,
true.
over the years, I've taken a couple of really cool classes at our art center, from doing like, yoga to Zumba to fabric art, uh,
Wow.
photography. Um, you know, there's a hip hop dance class. They've had DJing. So it's a little of everything, which is a really cool to have. And the families that are in our shelters and transitional housing programs are able to take classes for free.
Mhm.
Um, and staff, we get a one free class, and then everything out after that, it's discounted. So it's a nice little perk.
Nice. So, which program do you think is the most successful in your eyes that they offer?
Oh wow. It's like, how are you measuring success? That's hard to say because of course I want to say mine, right? Because I'm so awesome. But how do you measure a daycare center that's taking care of and treating our babies against a program that's finding people housing, that and another that is going to help young people get into school or help them find jobs? I think they're all necessary.
Right.
Um, and have different metrics that they're measured against. So I just will say that we pride ourselves on running quality programs, and trying to get input from the residents in the neighborhood in which we are located, as well as consumers from our transitional housing programs, so that we are responding to the needs that people have said are important to them. Um, and there's a little bit of everything. My ED, he says that we service the whole human from birth to death. Uh,
That's kind of
and it,
morbid.
yeah, well,
But it's
it's
true
it's the
though.
whole
It's
it's the
true.
whole human. When you have programs for babies to programs for seniors.
You're right.
At one point we had seniors who were in our at our senior center who were octogenarians and moving on to 100 years old, and you're
Oh, wow.
servicing newborns. So it's a little bit of everything.
Right. I don't know if you would know this, but why do they stop up to age 8 for the children? Is that a
Um,
certain thing or like a guideline that certain vouchers only work for that age group and below? Is there yeah,
No,
sorry, you didn't
well, the concept of Helen's house when it was built, it's largely because of our setup. Our apartments are studios, and so the occupancy guidelines or Section 8 guidelines were typically that it was okay for a a parent to share a sleeping space with a child that was under a certain age, if they were of the opposite sex. So we always, stopped at a certain age because a teenage boy isn't trying doesn't it's uncomfortable for him to share a room with his mama.
Got it.
Or I think also the original concept of our shelter was for it to be for young mothers. So we tend to have young mothers who are in their early 20s who have either one or two children, um, because it is a studio. So we focus a lot on helping our clients throughout the parenting journey, learning what some of those skills that you need when you first have a baby and you're trying to figure it out. Rather it's what services are available to you, doing parent-child discovery, um, to so that you understand the stages of development. Um, my child care staff does one-on-one with parents so that they are helping them with stuff like potty training and helping your kids learn how to walk. Sometimes people may not want to put their child on the floor because they didn't mop the floor that day, and you learn in stages of development that your baby is never going to walk because you don't sit them on the floor so that they learn how to crawl and then how to raise themselves up so that they could take those steps and start toddling. Or uh, y- potty training may be really frustrating for a young mom who doesn't have her mother or grandmother or auntie or someone around and really understand what's going on. So um, our programming tends to be very toddler and child centric, um, because of the population that we serve.
Honestly, I feel like we should have it in all hospitals, whether it's a private or a city hospital.
Mhm.
That I'm not saying they shouldn't need to know about potty training when the baby's a newborn, but I feel like certain things should be told to a first time parent,
Mhm.
no matter
Exactly.
if they're rich or whatever. That should be done in the hospital. It shouldn't be coming home and the parent. First of all, I don't know if you have any kids, but I have a daughter and I'm also a foster mom. But your body goes through a lot of hormones, a lot of this and that. People get postpartum depression. They wonder why mothers are doing this to their kids. They don't want to do it, but it's like they can't even help themselves. It's like they need so much
Mhm.
resources. All they do is literally cut them open if it's three, and they stay in the hospital for a couple of days, 3 days or more, depending on complications. Or you push them out, so you get them 2 days in the hospital, and bye. They
Mhm.
put make sure, all they make sure is you have a car seat, and bye. Hopefully, you'd stay alive with the children. If you're a
You know,
first time mom and you don't have, especially if you don't
yeah.
have siblings, you are, and you don't have nobody to back you up, you're done for. I'm not gonna say the
Mhm.
child's not gonna come out, fine, but it's why make the person struggle that much, and the information is literally out there for free. They have like nurses will come to your house and help you wash clothes, help you take care of the baby, but people don't know that they have these things, so they're
Mhm.
just lost in the world, like just free, just lost. No phone call, no, how are you doing? Is the baby still alive? Like, I don't get it. I
Yeah,
don't understand.
yeah. People seem to just think that because our body can do something biologically that we know what it is, right?
Right,
That educating yourself about, you know, parenthood isn't necessary. Not only is it uh physically taxing, but all of the emotions,
right,
um, you know, so often people are going through um a whole lot because you have the physical, the psychological, all of that is happening and these hormones are coursing through your body as you give birth, or even the fact that you are in shelter and you have a young child, um, is traumatic enough
right.
because you don't have someone there to just say, what's wrong with this baby? What's going on? And we don't grow up knowing that. It's not instinctual. You don't just know stuff. You have to seek that information out.
Learn it, right?
Um, you don't, there's not some magic that suddenly enters your brain that says, "Oh, my baby is colicky and this is what you need to do for a colicky baby."
Exactly.
Um, so someone teaches you that, right? And it used to be the family, and everybody doesn't have that available to them. And
Exactly.
if you are not living with with your family, who knows what circumstances are that brought you into shelter? It could very well have been intimate partner violence. It could have been family um, discord where someone doesn't have that relationship with another family member, and people then are going to the childcare team at the shelter or to their caseworker who may or may not be a good source of information.
Hello, guys. Thank you for making it this far into the podcast. I hope that this information was, I want to say entertaining, but just give you an insight on people who work with people who are in shelter. I try to bring stories on here, what's both sided, because there's always, you know, different sides to a story. There's your side, their side, and then the truth, as they say. And both sides can see what's going on their side, and sometimes it's hard to see it on the other person's side depending on where you are and what kind of person you are. So I like to bring all sides on here, but this platform is really for bringing resources and people to hear the stories of the people with lived experience, because sometimes people don't see us for who we are, and we are a lot of times just not talked about. We're pushed to the side, we're pushed in shelters, and because you don't see majority of the time us on the street, you forget that we as families can be homeless. I am happy to say that I have been out of shelter since 2018, and since probably a year or two after I came out, that's when I became part of this advocating journey, and I'm excited. Thanks to the Family Homeless Coalition for that. So I just want to say again, follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, and come back for next week for part 2. Hope you enjoy. And if you want to share this podcast out to other people, you can. Thank you so much again. And thank you for being you. Thank you for watching, no matter what platform you're coming on. And also, we have a panel coming up. So that's also coming out soon, guys. But you'll hear more updates in the coming weeks. Bye.